Have you not carried all before you when you warmed up to the task, whereas your ordinary self would have stood around doing nothing under ordinary circumstances? Earnestness and enthusiasm are two great factors in bringing into operation these latent forces and dormant powers of the mentality. But one need not stand by and wait until you work yourself into a fit of fervor before the energies spring into action. You can, by a careful training of the will, or rather by a carefully training of yourself, use your will, manage to get hold of the mental throttle, so that you may pull it down and turn on a full head of steam whenever necessary. And when you have once mastered this, you will find that you are not any more tired when running under full pressure than when you are crawling along, this being one of the secrets of success. To many a person, the term the will means merely a firm steadfastness of mind, akin to determination and fixity of purpose. To others it means something like desire. To others it means the power of choice, etc. But to occultists, the will is something far more than these things. It means a vital power, an acting force of the mind, capable of dominating and ruling the other mental faculties, as well as projecting itself beyond the mental organs of the individual and affecting others coming within its field of influence. And it is in this sense that we use the word will in this lesson. We have no desire to take the reader into the dim realms of metaphysics, or even into the lighter but still arduous paths of scientific psychology, but we must acquaint him with the fact of the existence of this thing that we call willpower, and its relation to the I. Of all the mental faculties or powers, that of the will is the closest to the I or ego of the person. It is the sword of power clasped in the hand of the ego. One may divorce himself in thought from the other mental faculties and states, but when he thinks of the I, he is bound to think of it as possessing that power which we call will. The will is a primal original power of the I, which is always with it from the beginning, and which will remain with it until the end. It is the force with which he rules, or should rule, his mental and physical kingdom, the power of which his individuality manifests itself upon the outside world. Desire is the great motive power inciting the will to action in life. As we have shown you, the action of will without the motive power of desire is unthinkable, and therefore it follows that the culture and right direction of desire carries with it the channel of expression and manifestation of the will. You cultivate certain desires in order that the will may flow out along these channels. By cultivating the desire along certain lines, you are making channels along which the will may flow in its rush toward expression and manifestation. So be sure to map out your desire channels clearly by making the proper mental images of what you want. Be sure and make the desire channels deep and clear-cut by the force of repeated attention and autosuggestion. History is filled with examples of men who have developed the use of the will. We say developed the use rather than developed will, for man does not develop his will is always there ready for use. A man develops his ability to use the will, perfects himself in its use. We have frequently used the following illustration and have not been able to improve upon it. Man is like a trolley car, with the upraised trolley pole of his mind reaching out to the live wire of will. Along that wire is flowing the current of willpower, which it taps and draws down into his mind, and by which he is able to move and act and manifest power. But the power is always in the wire, and his developing consists in the ability to raise the pole to the wire, and thus tap onto its energy. If you will carry this idea in your mind, you will be able to apply this truth more easily in your everyday life. A great promoter of the steel pen and electroplating industries possesses this quality to a marked degree. It has been said of him that he had, to begin with, a strong, powerful, almost irresistible will, and whoever and whatever he opposed, he surely conquered in the end. Buxton said, "The longer I live, the more certain I am that the great difference between men, between the feeble and the powerful, the great and the insignificant, is energy, invincible determination, a purpose once fixed, and the victory or death. That quality will do anything that can be done in this world, and no talents, no circumstances, no opportunities will make a two-legged creature a man without it." In this last quotation and the one preceding it, the idea of persistence and determination is identified closely with that of will. And they are closely identified, the idea being that the will should be held close, fast, and steadily against the task to be accomplished, just as the steel chisel is held firmly up against the object on the lathe until its work is accomplished. It is not the mere determination or persistency that does the work. These would be of no avail unless the will were there to do the cutting and shaping. But then again, there is a double aspect of will here. The will in one phase does the work, while in another it forces the mind to hold it up against the task. So, in a sense, the will is the power back of determination and persistency, as well as the force doing the work, the cutting edge of the chisel, as well as the firm hand that holds it to its work. Simpson has said, "A passionate desire and an unwearied will can perform impossibilities, or what would seem to be such to the cold and feeble." Disraeli said, "I have brought myself by long meditation to the conviction that a human being with a settled purpose must accomplish it, and that nothing can resist a will which will stake even existence upon its fulfillment." Foster says, "It is wonderful how even the casualties of life seem to bow to a spirit that will not bow to them, and yield to subserve a design which they may, in their first apparent tendency, threaten to frustrate. When a firm, decisive spirit is recognized, it is curious to see how the space clears around a man and leaves him room and freedom." Mitchell has said, "Resolve is what makes a man manifest. Not puny resolve, not crude determination, not errant purpose, but that strong and indefatigable will which treads down difficulties and danger, as a boy treads down the heaving frostlands of winter, which kindles his eye and brain with a proud pulse-beat toward the unattainable. Will makes men giants. So, raise that mental trolley pole and touch the live wire of will." Lesson 5. Soul Force. You often have heard the word enthusiasm used, have used it often yourself. But have you ever thought of what the word really means, from what source it originated? What is its essential spirit? Few have. The word enthusiasm is derived from the Greek term meaning to be inspired, to be possessed by the gods, etc., the term having been originally used to designate the mental state of an inspired person who seems to be under the influence of a higher power. The term originally meant inspired by a superhuman or divine power, ecstasy, etc. It is now used, according to Webster, in the sense of enkindled and kindling fervor of soul, ardent and imaginative zeal or interest, lively manifestation of joy or zeal, etc. The word has acquired a secondary and unfavorable meaning in the sense of visionary zeal, imaginative fervor, etc., But its real and primary meaning is that ardent, lively zeal and interest in a thing which seems to awaken into activity some inner forces of one's nature. Real enthusiasm means a powerful mental state exerted in favor of or against some idea. A person filled with enthusiasm seems indeed to be inspired by some power or being higher than himself. He taps on to a source of power of which he is not ordinarily conscious. And the result is that he becomes as a great magnet radiating attractive force in all directions and influencing those within his field of influence. For enthusiasm is contagious, and when really experienced by the individual, renders him a source of inductive power and a center of mental influence. But the power with which he is filled does not come from an outside source. It comes from certain inner regions of his mind or soul, from his inner consciousness. Those who have read our little manual entitled Inner Consciousness will readily understand from what part of the mentality such power is derived. Enthusiasm is really soul power, and when genuine, is so recognized and felt by those coming within its field of influence. Without a certain amount of enthusiasm, no one ever has attained success and never will do so. There is no power in personal intercourse that can be compared to enthusiasm of the right sort. It comprises earnestness, concentration, and power, and there are a very few people that cannot be influenced in some degree by its manifestation by another. Few people realize the actual value of enthusiasm. Many have succeeded by reason of its possession, and many have failed by reason of its lack. Enthusiasm is the steam that drives our mental machinery, and which indirectly thus accomplishes the great things in life. You cannot accomplish tasks properly yourself unless you manifest a degree of interest in them. And what is enthusiasm but interest plus inspiration? Inspired interest, that's what enthusiasm is. By the power of enthusiasm, the great things of life are brought to expression and accomplishment. Enthusiasm is not a thing which some possess and others lack. All persons have it potentially, but only a few are able to express it. The majority is afraid to let themselves feel a thing, and then to let the feeling express itself in powerful action like the steam in an engine. The majority of persons do not know how to get up the steam of enthusiasm. They fail to keep the fires of interest and desire kindled under their mental boiler, and the consequence is they fail to get up the steam of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm may be developed by cultivating interest and love of your task.